Hi, and welcome to the Personal Podcast. I'm thrilled to have Michelle Minnikin here in the studio with me today. Michelle is a psychologist, coach, and author of this fabulous book, Girl Deprogramming, which we will be talking about in the show. So, Michelle, the first question, what's it like living with ADHD?
Like, how long have you got? So, interestingly, I found out I had ADHD in my 40s. So, but obviously I'd been living with ADHD my entire life. And it's really funny, I kind of sit looking at my family now and go, you all need to go to the doctors. But none of them are interested. So it's that growing up and finding things that normal people should be able to do, like super easy. But then on the reverse of that, it's like doing things that normal people are like, how did you manage that? So it's.
Can you give examples?
So I'm a parent of a 14-year-old boy, and he is in that the year before his GCSE. So it like starts, the GCSE stuff starts in September, and he's bright as a button. He was one of the children when lockdown happened and COVID happened, that whole like schooling from home, he thrived in that environment because there was no distractions. He was able to just rush through, get his work done, and then spend the rest of his day doing what he wanted to do. Whereas it's like watching torture, because he's sitting in classrooms for hours and hours, and when he wants to do something, he can do it quicker than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And when it's a lesson that he doesn't like, a teacher that he's not keen on, it is torturous because he's not allowed to move around, he's not allowed to fidget, you have to sit still and look like you're concentrating, because what concentration looks like, if I'm on like a long webinar that I really want to be on, I have to be like playing a game or something on my phone just to keep the concentration. Yeah, because if I'm not, I'll be like literally dying. Mm-hmm. It's so boring. It's because I have to be doing. It's that like constant energy of like moving around and when you're not allowed to, it's really painful.
I can relate a lot to that, and it's that question you said, what does concentration look like? Because most people think it's sitting there quietly. Yeah, absolutely, that exact position.
It's just like, I'm pretending to concentrate now.
Yeah, but for me, I like to fidget and move about, and totally, I've always kind of thrived when I've been out of the classroom and just had like I've got an hour to revise, need to do this, right, sorted, done, and then I'm doing my own thing. Yeah. And is that kind of what you describe as the other side of it? And I'm describing these symptoms. I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD, but I have always, well, not always, but just recently started to question it, especially since speaking to you and hearing some of the things that you'd experienced. So the other side of it, almost the superpower side of it, is it that element that you can get through tasks really quickly and have things done faster?
So this is funny. So yes, because there's the pressure. If somebody says to me, I want you to do this thing, take your time, that thing will never ever get done. I don't have any motivation. It's like, this thing needs to be done, but it'll get done when it gets done. Whereas if you say to me, oh, Michelle, you have got a deadline of Thursday at 12 o'clock, so you need to get it done, it will be done and it will be awesome, and then it'll be done on Wednesday.
Okay, right.
Because I need a certain amount of pressure in order to focus my concentration to get things done.
Okay.
Because even like coursework at school, I'm like, oh, this is so boring. So boring. I can't be bothered. It's like that starting. There's no energy. There's no interest in starting, because ADHD is like chasing the dopamine.
It's okay.
But then when you've got that pressure of like, I need to do it by tomorrow, it's brilliant, because you're like, I am going to be the most focused person, and if anyone even tries to interrupt me, I'm going to be really cross with them.
So it was done the other way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
that high focus. That's how I managed to get that thing out, the book.
Amazing. And how did you actually, one other question that I know a lot of people will be thinking, they might just say, but isn't that normal? Don't we all as humans need a deadline? Is it not just human nature to not rush something until it needs to be done?
There's a level.
Okay.
it needs to get to dangerous panic, oh my God, I'm going to die levels for me to actually do it. So I think I would say normal people can motivate themselves. So this is the interesting about discipline. I have zero discipline. If it doesn't need to be done, it won't get done.
But the book didn't really need to be done, but you've written
the book needed to be done.
Okay, fair point. Yeah, I suppose I do have a lot of discipline, but I guess you can still have ADHD and have varying levels of different.
It depends on where it's interest-based attention.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So where is your interest? If your interest is in writing a book to change the world, then you write the bloody book to change the world. If your interest is in like creating the best garden you've ever seen in your entire life, then that will be the case.
Makes sense.
But if somebody's saying you must learn Spanish and maths and physics, okay, it's not my interest.
Okay,
but it's somebody else is trying to motivate me, and that's like literally just never works.
And sorry, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but is that not the case for a lot of people? They have to kind of know the why they need to do it and have an interest in it.
Yeah, this is like turn it way
extreme.
Turn it way up.
Okay, interesting. And how did you discover that you had it? You mentioned it was in your 40s.
Yes, so it was 2020, International Women's Day. I was invited to the House of Lords for a fancy breakfast thing, and this was the the pandemic's just the flu, but don't hug anyone kind of stage of the pandemic. And I was in there, and I met this amazing lady called Anna Price. And she was telling everybody about her ADHD diagnosis. And the things she was saying, I was just like, yeah.
What were some of those things?
So that constant level of not living up to your potential. So at school, all my mocks and all of that, I was constantly at least one grade lower than what everybody expected me to do.
Okay.
And those, stop talking in class and all of that, so distractive and daydreaming and all, and yeah. And I was like,
even things you mentioned like caffeine sensitivity.
Oh yeah, like I've had less than half a centimetre of caffeine, and I'm like, how's it going?
Oh, I know, when I can feel my green tea kicking it already, but I do love it. And same with alcohol, is that a thing?
So there's a lot of addiction within the ADHD community.
Okay, yeah.
So we noticed, so my partner's now been diagnosed as well.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
It was funny because when I met him, it was like, there's something about you that's very like familiar to me. So it's like, if you're like the first boyfriend I've ever had that's like me, and I've not had to like pretend to be somebody else.
That was a question actually I had. Like, does it affect relationships?
Oh God, yes. There's books about it.
Okay.
So going back to your question, if I can remember what it was.
Yeah, sorry.
I completely forgot the question.
It's my fault for jumping around as well. It was, how did you discover it? But sorry, I asked several questions in between that.
So yeah, so that's having that discovery. There was something else I was going to say, and then I mentioned James.
There was how it affects your relationship, how caffeine, alcohol.
Oh yes, yeah, addiction. There we go.
Addiction.
So there is a lot of research into. It's like, you know what Brené Brown says about that, those self-soothing things.
So right, it's a while since I've heard Brené.
Yeah, so it's that kind of looking for what's going to kind of stop our brains going mental.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So alcohol, drugs. There's known research about the ADHD school to prison pipeline because of risky behaviours, which is more of the masculine presenting ADHD, but it's a way of numbing. So it's all numbing. So my addiction is sugar. He just says with like 2 sugars different. But yes, that's we stopped drinking during the pandemic when we realised that every night wasn't cocktail night.
Yes, again, I'm quite controlling with things like that because I've never had problems, but I just either have to be one way or the other.
Yes. Let's get drunk or let's not bother.
Yeah, totally. The same with caffeine. It's either, right, I can't have any right now. I just need to calm myself down. Let's cut it out. Same with sugar as well. I go through a phase where I either eat all the sugar or none at all.
Mm.
I don't know if that's a tendency of someone who has ADHD. I mean, what is ADHD?
I think in the future we're going to look back at this time and go, well, you know, that's bonkers. So neurodiversity is everybody. Nobody's feet are the same size. Nobody's eye colours are the, you know, everything is a range, and there must be a evolutionary need for people who are more prone to taking risks and wondering what is, and that attention, like what is the attention? So there's loads of schools of thought, but I think in the future it's just going to be it's a normal part of our human brains, but it only becomes a problem when we try and squeeze us in to these schooling is so rigid, and workplaces are so rigid. It's structures that are designed, context designed for the average person, which actually does not suit
anybody. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's that famous story of the US Air Force. There's probably 7 different stories put together, but I'm just going to tell this one. US Air Force was only issuing shoes in size 7 because that was the average size foot.
Okay.
During one of the wars, and who does it suit? A very small majority of people.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're all on the spectrum, aren't we?
We are all beautifully unique.
Yeah.
And there are, I would say, unlimited spectrums that we're probably on in terms of like personality and height, weight, skin colour, hair colour, all of it. It is beautifully diverse.
Yeah. But we seem to be obsessed with kind of putting people in boxes and labels on it. That said, did it help you when you did get a label?
It helped me because it's not a huge surprise that I went into psychology as a profession, because it's all that why. Why do we do things the way we do things?
Yeah.
I grew up in the Northern Ireland during the Troubles as well, in the 80s, which was fun times. Not.
But that was scary.
Yeah, it was a bit terrifying. Like looking back, it's like very traumatic.
Yeah, did you have any close calls? Sorry, change the subject.
Yeah, we had to sort of like every day-to-day life. My dad was in the army, so we had a mirror on a stick to look underneath our car for bombs every time we got in the car. Even if we'd popped to the shop, we had to stand back while my mum looked around the car with a mirror on a stick to look for bombs underneath the car, even if we just popped to the shops.
As a child, I would just find that so traumatic.
Yep.
And I would be just so nervous, sat in a car, thinking it's going to explode.
Yep.
Are you okay now about that?
So I still do not like people in balaclavas. It's like,
oh, I mean, I don't.
No. But yeah, it's like I have we need to leave if I see anybody. Yeah.
I think that's normal, maybe. No. But yes.
But growing up with that, why do grown-ass men want to kill me? Yeah. So yeah, no wonder I went down the psychology route to understand why people do the things that they do.
Yeah. And sorry, I totally changed the subject there, but it's going back to kind of getting the label, is that how it helped?
So understanding my brain, other people's brains, has always been a special interest. What a surprise for me. And that kind of label, that level of self it's not even just, low self-esteem, complete people-pleasing. I didn't even know who I was, what I liked. It's like Runaway Bride, that movie, and she had seen it for ages. Yeah, neither have I.
Yeah.
But she decides on what kind of egg she likes depending on what her fiance's eggs were like.
Okay, yeah.
And then she realised that she didn't like any of the eggs or the fiance's and bolted at the last minute. So I was literally like that. It's like I literally had no preferences. So I was so busy trying to be normal, not weird, that I didn't even know who I was. I was completely lost. So when I had that diagnosis, I was like, aha, I can now pin some of these behaviours on, and I was livid.
Oh, it was so cross.
So there was the level of relief, but the overriding emotion was I was furious.
Just you wish you'd been diagnosed sooner.
This would have been really interesting and useful information to understand that, I've read all of the books. Why am I not motivated by all of the normal things? Why can't I just stick to one routine? I love a routine until I get bored of the routine and I need a new routine. And that's fine. Knowing that's fine is useful information. But it's like, why am I so rubbish? I'm just so rubbish. I can't even stick to any routines. It was that level of like self-bashing, as it were.
And it literally revolutionised that when you knew, well, this is why.
Yes, but I still had to deal with the rage.
Oh, okay.
Like really ragey.
Are you still raging?
No, I'm fine.
And I've read articles that say ADHD is more like an adaptation to our modern, fast-paced world. The way technology's going, the way we're on about 20 different apps all at once on our phone. So it's almost more like a superpower. If you've got it, you've adapted. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, interestingly, I go back to cave people times.
Okay.
So if everybody was the same, and we were, risk averse, normal. Everybody's normal, but this normal. We would still be living in caves. It takes the sort of the atypical people to go, ooh, I wonder what would happen if, or I wonder what is over that hill, or what would happen if I got some flour and some eggs and some sugar and some butter and put it in the oven. It's like, or it's like, oh, that's a cow. I wonder what happens if I pull these things. It's like the normal person doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
So that insatiable curiosity, I think, is a big cornerstone for my ADHD.
Oh, absolutely. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a brilliant answer. And are there any people that you've met that have misconceptions about what ADHD is, or perhaps certain stereotypes?
Oh, it's not that. I'm very selective about who I meet nowadays.
Thank you for meeting me.
That's good. I was recommended. But you see it in like newspaper articles. ADHD is not a thing. I don't believe in ADHD. It's like, well, you know what they say about opinions and buttholes. Everybody's got them, and most of them stink.
That's why I wanted to raise it, because I knew there'd be people listening saying that. So yeah, it's good to hear kind of counter arguments.
Yeah, it's a genetic thing. It's a, I can look through my entire family and go, oh, that explains that one.
Oh, really? So literally it's genetic?
Yep.
And do you think your parents had it as well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. My grandparents as well. I can see that.
Yeah.
In them. There was my mum's birthday party the other week, and I was sat at the table going,
okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So how did you get diagnosed? Was there a certain test that you did?
So I had to fill it in. I'm the eldest of 4 kids.
Okay.
So we have to fill in a form with like all of your past history of like childhood. I got all my report cards out. It's like, oh yes, she was very chatty. She wouldn't shut up. If only she would concentrate. She's really interested in this thing. She does really well at it.
Mm-hmm.
My biology teacher at GCSE, she was like, she's from Yorkshire, so I'll have to do her accent. She goes, Michelle, I was Robson at the time. Michelle Robson, you're not good to pass your GCSE in biology. And I was like, you want to watch me? Gotta be. So it's like, that's how I'm motivated, not like, oh, I would like to get a B.
Oh, so are you more motivated by someone saying that you can't do something?
Oh, yeah.
That's totally. So if someone gets my back up, the best way to motivate.
Yes, like, hold my beer.
When I was a swimmer, it used to frustrate my parents, because literally if someone got me angry, I would swim so well. But otherwise I was just nice, and I was like, yeah, this is all right, having a nice day.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know about that. But I think I need to get tested.
So you're asking me how to get tested. So I had to fill in a form, and I had to get a parent to fill a form in. And I went to my mum, I was like, do you want to fill a form? And she was, I got 4 kids, I can't remember which one you were. This is like a while ago.
To be fair, I can understand. I've got 2. And
yeah. So I used my reports, and my partner filled the forms in. And then I met with a psychiatrist. And it was literally just before Christmas. And the entire time he was asking me loads of questions. And he was quite a young chap. And all I could see, it was online. It was during lockdown. we were sitting with a jumper on, and all I could see was, this is on his jumper, Christmas jumper he's wearing. And he was like, well, based on all of this stuff, I think you definitely have ADHD, and, this is the stuff we can do. We can maybe look at medication, or like how you can change your diet, all of this stuff. And he goes, have you got any questions? I'm like, I need to see what the rest of your jumper says, because I literally not listened to a word you said, because your jumper. And he stood up and he was like, it was a picture of Darth Vader, and it was like, this is my happy face.
Oh. But maybe that jumper was a test. Maybe that was the real test.
Like, I was in physical pain not knowing what was on his jumper.
Wow, I would understand that.
I was like, should I Google Star Wars Christmas jumpers? I'm like, no, just ask the man.
Listen to the test. And you mentioned diet and medication. So how do those
work? So there's loads of like supplements you can take, which I have not really gone down the exploring route, because it's like with all these like, amino acids. I'm like, oh, it's getting really confusing.
Oh, I love supplements, so but yeah.
Yes.
But supplements can make a difference.
Yes.
In terms of calming down the brain.
Potentially.
Okay.
And medication. So effectively, it was called methylphenidate. So he offered me that, and I said, well, have a try, see what happens. And honestly, the first time taking it was like, in yoga, when the yoga teacher goes, right, I want you to just empty your mind, and if you see any thoughts come, just imagine them as clouds that you can just watch waft by. And I'm sitting there thinking, clouds? I've got like hailstones of what's fatigue. Oh, look what that's wearing. Oh, I wonder how cows think. It's like literally like ridiculous thoughts 1,000 times a day.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that my brain just went,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, is this me? And I never took drugs when I might have noticed this when like at university, like most of my friends were off the, what?
Yeah.
I never took drugs.
No, I haven't.
But it's like, it is literally speed. So they give you like a massive stimulant, and it just calms you down.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So maybe if I was like, clubbing in the day, I'd be like, yeah, I've had enough now. I'm going home. Everyone else take drugs. I'm like, yeah.
How does it feel when you're so used to your mind racing to suddenly have a calm brain?
I was able to write a book.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe I need to get myself that. It's like, woohoo. I'm not on them anymore.
Okay. There must be a downside maybe to being on medication.
Oh, it's like really, really thirsty. Nothing could. It's like that was like the big downside.
Okay.
And you don't have to take them all the time. So unlike antidepressants, where you have to take them all the time, or you have to take them for a year before they actually kick in or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just. I am not a clinical psychologist. I just want to put this sort of disclaimer out. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I can't diagnose. I can't prescribe. I am not. This is not substituting any medical advice, just in case anyone.
Thank you for saying
that. But I took them for probably about 6 months, and that was enough for me to, like, my brain to almost rewire itself.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to have the same effect now with a 1 or 2 cups of coffee every day now.
Yeah.
So, but if I have to fill a form in, I've got an emergency stash of very low dose that can keep me like filling forms in for a good hour and a half. And I just take one of those in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
Forms
very
make me cry. Forms are the worst.
Forms.
It's like, I don't even know what you're asking for.
No. Yeah, totally. Yeah, a lot of forms in my life at the minute.
Yeah.
Painful. And yeah, did we get to the answer around how ADHD affects relationships?
I think because the person with ADHD does not know most of the time that they have ADHD, they're trying to follow normal relationship patterns.
Okay.
So interestingly, I made friends with one of my favourite authors, and he recommended that I read this book called It's from a chap called Stan Tatkin. It's called Your Brain on Love. So, never heard of this chap before, and it just made so much sense because all of the advice and guidance about relationships just didn't seem to work for me.
Okay.
Whereas this book, just like, so things like we never grow out of wanting to be parented,
right?
But that's that kind of parenting ourselves as well as parenting our partners,
Okay.
but not in a kind of, oh my God, you needed to pick your socks up, or like nagging parenting.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But that kind of more adult to adult relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's loads of books about managing with ADHD
Okay.
partners.
Interesting. Made a note of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anything else you'd like to say on the ADHD topic before we change subjects?
No, that's some really good questions.
Okay, brilliant. Well, hopefully it'll help people. It certainly helped me, and I think it's just good to know as much as possible about.
Well, actually, one last thing is to find your tribe. It's really interesting that when we found out that we had ADHD, I automatically found, if you come across Nicola Jane Little.
Yes, I have met her on your recommendation.
So Nicola and her team at Celebrate Difference, just epic.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Having that place to go to in Winjat and be around, and like, I'm not the weird one anymore. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
I think I met Nicola briefly and Laura.
Yeah.
Hopefully going to have Laura on the podcast at some point.
We always laugh because we're like frozen sisters, so I've got blonde hair and she's got red hair, and we sing songs at each other. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a question about singing later. You can maybe give us a sample. Okay, I want to talk more about this book.
Yep.
Because it's got a really interesting title, Good Girl Deprogramming.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of saying good girl to my children. And I want to raise really strong, empowered women. And I need to learn more about this. And I haven't had a chance to fully read this book yet, but I really want to. But for the listeners of the podcast, I want you to give us a little snapshot of what it's all about.
Well, interestingly, it came off the back of my ADHD diagnosis. So once I had that and the rage, I went to see a wonderful lady called Karen Roundtree, who is a coach, therapist, medium, and witch.
Amazing, right? So what's her name?
Karen Roundtree. So she wrote a book called The Divine Feminist.
Okay.
And she has a lovely podcast of the same name. And
wonderful.
So I went to her for some help because she's kind of like a really good friend of my best friend. So we'd met each other over the years and stuff. Anyway, so I was like, I need to get rid of some of this like anger. And I went to her and kind of working the way through. I was then asked to go onto a women's it's like a women's empowerment day as a part of an L&D conference in America.
Right.
And we did some like co-creation of what the day could look like, and we were talking about all of the sort of the barriers to women at work, and I mentioned this thing called good girl conditioning because as a part of my therapy, I was like, right, so I know what this ADHD thing is, and I kind of understand me, but then there's a whole lot of something else. It's like, what are you doing with your hands, Michelle? It's like, listeners, I am waving my arms around like a lunatic.
Thanks for explaining that.
and there was this like big blob of meh. So I figured that out in my therapy that was coaching, because we're technically friends. It wasn't supposed to be. Yeah, anyway. That was my good girl conditioning. So that's all the times I people please, try and like overly explain, overly apologize, minimize myself, put sort of like, oh, well, just if you could please, all of that sort of hesitant language, all of that. So as a part of the L&D conference, I was like, right, I'm going to figure out, like you do, I'm going to figure out how this good girl conditioning thing happens. So effectively, I went on Tintweb and came across a chap, and I was just Googling, how does this happen? Societal patriarchy, capitalism, all that stuff. And I came across this guy called Albert Biderman.
Okay.
So Albert was a 1950s social scientist in America who was tasked with figuring out why so many American prisoners of war were defecting to China during the Korean War. And because, like, oh my God, the US powers that could be was like, oh, do the Chinese have a magical brainwashing machine? It's like, how do we take like a US Marine or a US soldier, and then they go through some sort of magical brainwashing machine and come out as like, oh, I don't want to go to America, I want to go to China. So they were horrified. And Biden and his team interviewed loads of these prisoners of war and came up with a chart of coercion. So, and it's all about how people are coerced into doing things that they don't want to do.
Okay.
And, it's like torture. And so I was like, oh, I wonder. This is that curiosity thing again.
Yeah.
And I printed it off, like this chart of coercion, so the tactics of coercive control. And I just got a piece of paper, got the paper, got a pen. Half an hour later, I was like, oh,
I've got it.
It's like, yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, I found this thing, but oh my gosh, I found this thing.
Right. You have an idea for a podcast in your head. If so, we can record, produce, and promote that podcast to bring it to life. Contact us today to find out how.
So I did a talk. I was like, use the framework. Did a talk. It went down really, really well. Really sucks that I didn't video the talk because we were like, we wanted it to be a safe space. Anyway, it's fine. And then it just wouldn't go away. Just the thought was like, right, I've done the talk now. Let's go on with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't go away. So I was like, right, this needs to be a book. So it took me 2 years to write it, and a lot of heartache because some of the tools of coercive control are quite harrowing.
What are some of the tools? You knew that was coming.
I know. So the chapter that I struggled with the most, it's all about keeping women tired. All of the different ways that we are kept tired. So all of the unpaid, emotional, domestic, housekeeping, office labour that we are way more likely to do than our male colleagues. All of this, how we should be in terms of, we need to be like pretty. It's like literally the Barbie speech.
Right.
All of the time, effort and energy we have to spend into looking good
Mm-hmm.
and, being thin
Mm-hmm.
and, all of that stuff. And like women sleep on average like 2 hours less than men do because of all of the other stuff we have to do. And that was the worst chapter for me to write. That took me 6 months. 6 months of like trauma to write.
Right. And it's not just all the physical activity, it's the mental load
as
well. And I know it's not typical of every relationship, but in mine, I've found that it was. The mental load was more exhausting than the physical.
Yeah. It's like, what's for tea? What do we need to get from the shops?
Mm-hmm.
Who has to go where at what time? Who, have we done all the washing? Who needs to fold it? All of that stuff.
Yeah, it was more just around the children as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like this person's homework, that person's homework, this person's appointment, that person. It's like, all of that stuff. So globally, I can't remember what the exact figure is, but globally, Oxfam have said that the sort of the economic value of women's unpaid labour across the caring, across the organising, all of that is worth over 3 times the amount of money that the tech industry generates. Rachel Rogers, another good book, she wrote a book called Why We Should All Be Millionaires, about how this really good business case for why women need to make more money. She said that for a high net worth individual, a home manager, a domestic manager, gets paid about $100,000 a year. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yeah, just leave it there. Leave it hanging.
Yep.
And how do we stop this? How do we change things if we're just using that example?
So, Gloria Steinem has said that women will never be equal outside the home until men are equal inside the home. And it's that, I know that I'm using a very heteronormative, viewpoint, but it's so unequal. The world is so unequal that we are expected to do like our first shift if, most of us have to work, and then our second shift when we get home from work.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and to be fair, in my relationship in the past, I did fight for that equality within the home, and I wouldn't settle for less sometimes. I think sometimes as women we have to rise up and say, no, we have to do our fair share. So is that part of the deprogramming, breaking out of that and realising that?
So the kind of the main bit is like just recognising it. Because it's so ingrained with us. It's, our grandparents, it's just how things have always been.
Yeah.
And it's so ingrained with us. We just participate. We don't notice.
And we also, and this is sometimes something I've thought over the years, and obviously you can't, biologically, we are, unfortunately at a disadvantage or an advantage, depends how you look at it. We have to carry the children for 9 months, and then we give birth to them, and all these things do mean that we need to take time out of work. So some things, it is more difficult. I think we'll only have true equality when, and perhaps it will be a thing in the future, when men can have babies too.
Could you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the laws would change. The laws would change so quickly.
Absolutely.
All of that stuff. But yes.
So is there any particular personal experience that you really resonated with when writing this book?
In every single chapter.
Yeah, every single one.
Every single chapter. There's some stories that, for me, so, we talk about, violence against women and girls. I hate saying violence against women and girls, like we're passive and then we just get violence at us. It's, quite significantly male violence against women and girls. So that's all in there. And even the threat. So getting back to, there's this thing that's been going around. Somebody asked the question on the internet at some point and it's just literally gone around the world. As a woman, would you prefer to be in the forest with a tea on myself? Sorry about that. Sorry, start that again while I'm not throwing tea on myself. No, I was ready just to go with it. So improv lessons are really good. So yes, in a forest as a woman, would you rather be in a forest with a bear or with a man? And this is not like a loved man that you know. This is just like any random dude.
Or a loved bear that you know.
It's like you don't know either the bear or the man.
Okay.
And it's asked women to choose. And the backlash to that has been unbelievable because most women chose the bear. Because, in terms of deaths, there are significantly fewer deaths from bears and women than men and women. In this country, what's it? 1 woman every 3 or 4 days are killed by a loved person. Wow. Loved. Yes.
Yes, loved.
Yes. And when, if a bear murders them, they're not going to get blamed for what they're wearing or what they were drinking.
Yeah, they don't cause it.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's been really fascinating is the extreme responses from men.
Okay.
So some men have been like, yeah, I get it. Because, of course, male violence against men is a thing too. And there's some of them. It's like, just listen to what women are saying. 1 in 3 estimated women are going to be, sexually assaulted in their lifetimes.
Yes.
And that, there's a victim focus survey that came out a couple of years ago. It was like 98%, something ridiculous, of women have been, sexually assaulted, attacked, raped, whatever. And it's just like, listen. I was on the Northumbria Police and Crime Commissioner has very amazingly actually put out these active bystander awareness training.
Ah, yes, I saw that you did that.
So I did it last Friday and the Friday before. It's like 2 half days. And I was expecting to go in and like, how do we prevent some of this stuff? And it was like so eye-opening because it has been for years driven, it's up to us to protect ourselves. We have to not walk at night. We have to stay in the house. Or if we have to walk at night, we need to phone somebody on the beginning and the end of our journey and have keys in between our fingers and not have ponytails and not put your headphones in and all that crap. All of that. But they showed us two TED Talks that were just two guys doing TED Talks and basically saying, women shouldn't be solving this problem. This is not a problem for women to solve. So I literally came home and was like, James, you're going on this active bystander awareness training. And it's a shame that they only do it 2 or 3 times a year, because this should be done at every workplace, every school, just everything. So yeah,
it's almost is it about the men standing up for the women if they see something wrong, pointing it out? Is that
we talked about the pyramid of hate.
Oh, okay.
So basically, at the bottom of the pyramid, it's like jokes and banter.
Right.
And page 3.
Okay.
And then at the top of the pyramid is like genocide.
Right.
And we talk through how, all of this dehumanizing can kind of like creep up to murder. And where we can intervene is this, the sexist jokes and the sexist tropes and the headlines that, what was she wearing? And it's like, yeah. And I saw a part of the training, I was like, oh, wow. So there's a headline at the front of a paper with Angela Merkel and Theresa May, and they both had bare legs.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Bare legs. And the headline was like, never mind Brexit, who won Legsit?
Nice.
Like, if you can sexualize those 2 women, then wow. It's like, no woman is safe.
It's a joke. They would never have that with 2 male politicians, would they?
So bad. I was like, I cringed so hard. So Scarlett Johansson's really good at sort of basically not taking any crap around that.
Good.
So there are, and you saw, that lady, I can't remember, Hannah from Ted Lasso. She was at some event last week, and one of the journalists, like, show us your legs. And she was like, no, I will not. And she walked off in a really big strop. And I was like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, we need more of that.
We do. We need more bullshit women saying, no more, no thank you.
Yeah, and it's starting to get more media attention when they do as well, which is important.
Because previously it was like, what a bitch.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And is that kind of at the heart of this, I had that question kind of, what does it mean to be a good girl and how do we change it? Is it just as a case of read the book?
No. So it is all about the ways that we've been trained for generations to be nice, to be kind, to smile, to be polite, to just take it and blame ourselves if things go wrong, and it's exhausting. It's all of that stuff. And the perfectionism.
Yeah.
So my big question at the moment, because I'm thinking about book number 2, is what happens? Girls in school are, on average, deemed as more mature, more capable, get better exams, do better homework, even maths at A-level. Girls are doing better. What happens in that? It could be 24 hours between leaving school, college, university, and joining work. But all of a sudden, we're lacking confidence, we're not strategic enough, we've got imposter syndrome. What is that?
Yeah.
So why is school clearly built so much better for girls and work not so much?
That's a really interesting question. Do you know the answer?
I've got lots of different answers.
Okay.
A whole book's worth, turns out.
Brilliant. Well, we'll chat again when that book's ready.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you believe that it is still a man's world?
100%. World was built by men for men, and rich white men. You just look at Weinstein getting off the other week. It's like, give me a break.
I didn't even know about that.
Yep. So his New York trial was deemed as a mistrial, so they have to go back to court. He's still in jail because he did stuff in California as well. But because they used some evidence of his previous behaviour, apparently that wasn't allowed, even though in a rape trial, the rape victim and I'm using that word deliberately, her past behaviour is on trial. But for some reason, because some of the offences that he definitely did were outside of the statute of limitations, it was declared that the prosecutors overstepped and caused a mistrial.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yep.
Do you think things are based on that and based on other things happening in the world? Do you think things are changing for the better or the worse?
Well, we're still in this sort of everything in nature is a balance. You know, yin yang, it's a balance. And there's so much masculine energy. Like, I can't tell you what the figures are, but they're in the book, but I can't remember them. The numbers of world leaders that are men, you know, people who own newspaper and media platforms, all dudes. And this complete balance of the masculine energies are the ones that are valued. So that aggression and that power and that money and, you know, all of the masculine stuff. So masculinity is not inherently toxic.
Yeah,
not at all. But it has flipped to those more cruel, I can't remember what the word is, but the crueler, the less compassionate traits.
Yes.
And we need to have more kindness and generosity and tolerance. It's just completely out of balance, effectively, is the problem with the world.
Yeah, no, like we do say Mother Earth, don't we? And the Earth is suffering as a result of it.
Yes, don't get me started on religion.
Oh, yes. We won't go there. We don't have time, Michelle. Another time. I do just want to touch on kind of family and some of your experiences within that, because you chose to leave your partner when you were 4 months pregnant.
Yep.
Is that right? And were you phased at all about bringing a baby into this world on your own?
So yes, it's really interesting, and I've got 2 marriage breakdowns now under my belt, which is, you know, fun. But I had to do what was right for me at the time.
Yeah.
So me and my first ex-husband are really good friends now, so it's fine. It's fine. But it was, and that's going back to the bear thing and going back to the why so many women are not dating. So there's a whole big movement come out of Korea again, about women not, I think it's called the 4B movement.
Oh, interesting.
And it's all about women not having relationships with men, not having babies with men, and, you know, putting their careers and themselves first. And there's a massive backlash. But it's that kind of, what do you choose? Do you choose peace or do you choose a relationship?
Very interesting question. I'm sorry. Who was your birthing partner, or did you just do it all on your own?
Oh, my ex-husband was there. My mum was there.
Okay.
Yes. So, you know, when they talk about like oxytocin and that kind of birth thing.
Yes.
So I was determined that, you know, I've deprived him of all of this stuff. So I'm gonna be kind, be a good girl, and invite him into the birthing suite. So of course it went horribly wrong and ended up with emergency C-section, because you're supposed to be in giving birth. You're supposed to be surrounded by, like, this is why hospitals are like the worst. If you go back to caveman times, you're supposed to be in like a dark, cozy, comforting, warmth, love thing.
Yes.
And I was like literally in a room with somebody who had been fighting for months. So,
oh, that must have been so difficult.
Yep, I was trying to be nice. Famous last words. But we are fine now.
But yeah, difficult time. And did you ever question if you were doing the right thing?
Yes, but I thought he was like, you know, it was his baby too, and yes, I did, but I did it anyway.
Good for you.
But then kind of looking back, and I thought, I don't know whether it changed anything, because he still had to, you know, he got to see way worse than he was expecting to see with the major abdominal surgery. But yeah, at least he got to see his baby being removed. I would say to my boy, it's like, you weren't born, you were removed.
You wouldn't come out.
Yeah, you know, it was funny.
Oh, bless him. And what was the most challenging part of it? Because it's so hard with a newborn baby. How did you manage on your own?
So one of the chapters in the book is about this independence, this social isolation. So how women and girls are raised to believe that we are independent and we can do it all and don't ask for help. So I was like, yeah. And one of my, it's a hilarious advantage in some situations, but complete disadvantage in other situations. So I was 30. I sound fairly posh, but I don't have an accent because my dad was in the army and I travelled around. And I was literally like C-section on Christmas Day morning, out by lunchtime on Boxing Day. And all the other mothers were getting like these massive lectures about how to look after a baby. And it was like, they just assumed I had like way more competence than I did. So I was like, it's fine, we'll just go back to my house. And I had struggles with breastfeeding because, ouch, that hurt. And it's supposed to hurt, turns out, but I thought I was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
These are the things we don't tell new mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're meant to bleed your nipples.
yeah,
You know?
it's like, yay! I think there's a design issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like all of these things. So I probably lasted about 2 weeks on my own, and I was like, Mum, come and save me. But I slept when he slept. So this is the beauty of having a baby on your own, is I didn't have to sort of, didn't have to get dressed, I didn't have to clean the house, I didn't have to feed anybody else. I became as nocturnal during my maternity leave. And I was so fortunate to have an organisation that was working for that I got 6 months full pay.
Amazing.
So I was like, yes, it was, I don't know how I would have coped if that hadn't happened. So the monetary thing was fine. I was sorted. I had my house, I had my baby, and we just became nocturnal.
It's interesting. I listened to a podcast the other day where someone said that they raised their baby on their own. And they said, actually, it was easier because, yes, I had to get up and do all the night feeds. But most of the time, again, through physiological reasons, breastfeeding, most of the time women have to anyway. But the thing that made me more comfortable and at ease was I had no one to resent.
Yes.
So actually my life, again, that peace word, she had a lot more peace in her life. Yeah, she was a little bit more tired maybe than she would have been if she had a partner. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yes, I always say, like, when I had my NCT, the National Childcare Trust mums that I met when we went to all our maternity training, and we always said, it's like, because I was the single one, and we always said it would be so much better that if we just took mothers and babies into like a mansion to just spend time just mothers and babies for the first year of their lives, and things would be so much easier because then we'd be able to look after each other's and have the company and stuff, but not have to do any of the things. So yeah,
I think a lot of tribes still behave that way, and it's just interesting, isn't it? There's no right or wrong in any of this, but it's just interesting to observe how people interact. And I know we have talked negatively about some men in this, but you are in a relationship now, you're in a happy relationship. Good men do exist, don't they?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Most men are awesome.
Yeah.
Most men are brilliant and loving and kind and nurturing. But we don't know which ones they are.
That's the problem. Same for bears, though.
We save the bears. I think most bears are bastards, aren't they? Especially polar bears. That might be a different answer to the question. It's like, definitely not a polar bear, because if they can see you, probably yes.
But then you know where you stand.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, I walked into the polar bear's territory. It's entirely my fault.
Yeah, I know what's coming. There's no psychological abuse. It's straightforward. I read on one of the comments of spectacle bears, apparently one that you'd like to spend some time with. And
koala bears.
Absolutely.
They're not really bears, though, are they?
But they're not.
I'm not sure.
They're cute anyway.
They are, but they do have chlamydia, apparently.
Oh, right. So again, so do some men. I'm livid. Okay, right, on to the regular questions, just to round it off. So this is where we rate yourself.
This is hilarious. I was howling when I got this.
Oh, brilliant. It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Some people like to take it seriously. There's nothing wrong with that either. But on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, Michelle, how would you rate yourself at? How attractive are you?
Say I'm a 6.
How funny are you?
Oh, 10.
Yeah. How good at cooking are you?
If I'm left alone, I'm definitely an 8. I like to be on my own when I'm cooking.
Yeah, me too. Do you think that's an ADHD thing?
Possibly. I need to be in control. I need to be in control of the kitchen. Don't touch any of the things.
Singing. So this is where you're going to do your Elsa performance.
I think I'm probably a 7, but people around me probably think I'm less, but that's fine. I'm rating me, so whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about what you think of you.
Yep.
Could you belt out a bit of Let It Go?
No, that's like the hardest song to sing.
Sorry. Which is the easiest one?
Madonna-y songs are quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I love Madonna. I grew up with Madonna, and, people have got a lot to say about Madonna nowadays. But, yeah, she's not the most accomplished singer, so all of her songs are easy to sing.
That's a good point.
Apart from Evita, because Evita's amazing. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. When you think about Madonna, she was so far ahead of the curve on feminism. But again, all the drama she had to go through to get there. Again, bitch, everything like that.
Slut shaming.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you drink alcohol? And are you good at it?
No, not anymore. I'm literally 1 glass of wine and I'm hammered, so yay, cheap dates.
Yeah. So
So how good am I at alcohol? A 3.
3. Yeah, I'm similar. Parenting skills, what are they like?
Because I stopped listening to everybody else, and me and my beautifully neurodivergent son are muddling along, and we've attended loads of parenting for ADHD kids as well, courses, so it's been really useful. I think parenting-wise, I'm probably an 8 now. I think it would be a 10 if I had more patience at night. I have most of my patience in the morning. I run out of patience as the day goes on.
Yes,
Yep.
Yes, I understand. How good a friend are you?
Yeah, that was a grimace.
Yes, for the listeners, a grimace.
Yes, probably a 5. I'm not as good as I should be.
Yeah.
Contacting people, so sometimes it takes when they're there in front of my face. Yes, so probably a 5. My best friend would probably agree with you on that one.
Cool. What intelligence score would you give yourself?
8.
Brilliant. How kind are you?
7.
Great. And final one, how good at sex are you?
Oh, 10, obviously.
Does ADHD affect sex?
Well, it's one of the numbing things as well. So you could actually, that sort of more addiction to sex thing could be a thing. But in terms of love languages, my number 1 love language is physical touch.
Okay. Must be a 10 then.
Yeah, it must be a 10.
Michelle, you've been fabulous. Thank you so much.